Why do I have like a red lamp?
I might have press record. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's that. So come on, George, go back to the QL. Let's give us some more shit on the QL. Come on.
QL is incredible. Like it's like the ST, but they made it even worse. You might
I think that was the objective.
You might, yeah. Like let's take the worst parts of Spectrum and the ST and make it into one computer, and they did that, and the result wasn't great. So
yeah.
What's the sound chip?
there is no sound chip. There is a beeper, and then. Talking about expansions, you can buy a few expansions. You can buy an AY expansion, so it's your, the YM, but the crap version that Spectrum and Amstrad has. Everyone started doing expansions because there was nothing bundled with the computer. So it's all non-standard and nothing fits with each other, and it's a complete disaster. So you have to find a common set of expansions that everyone agrees that they are those that the users have, and it's a Spectrum thing all over again. Like, what kind of expansion do you want? And the rest of the community will be like, we don't like that.
Because, like, am I right? It's like got 7 colors or something. And, and no frame buffer.
Yeah,
like...
it's fixed like on the Spectrum. Like I said, it's the worst parts of the Spectrum with the ST. So I'm supposed to port a couple of games there, so it will be fun.
But who's making you do that, George?
Nobody. The other puzzle game I'm doing, I've already ported it to five platforms. So it's on ST, Amiga, Mega Drive, Jaguar, and Neo Geo. So at this point, I'm like, I can port it in pretty much everything you want on 68K. But
TI, let's get it on the calculator.
Yeah, TI. Yeah, that's why I also got a TI.
Handheld.
I also got the SDK for the X68000, the Sharp one, the Japanese thing, and I've managed to plot a pixel on screen. So I think the rest is trivial.
Yeah.
So tell us, Tom, that since you are the junior in demo making, do you think you're too old for this yet, especially since you have started so late?
Well, I think we need to unpack what you mean by it. What is the it with which you refer to?
The party in demoing.
Okay, so, well, come on, we've got to separate these things out. Demoing, like, that's just you by yourself.
Okay, let's go for a party, yeah.
Okay, well, as you both know, I don't think I've ever been to one. I mean, like, what happens at a demo party, a proper one? Because I hear the word party and I think 2000s frat boy movie. I kind of think American Pie. I think cannonballs into swimming pools and, people having sex in their parents' bedrooms. So, like, tell me what happens at these demo parties. I genuinely, I imagine, is it debauchery? Is it hedonism? Is it not? What's the truth?
It used to be like that. Like my first demo parties was like drinking and fucking and not doing that much demoing at all.
Like there was fucking. I mean, I kind of get, obviously I get that, like, but it surprises me.
Well, it's quite open what you can do there.
Yeah, well, it sounds there.
So
I'm amazed.
Basically, you can imagine they rent a place that might have open nature and stuff like we see right now with that mod. Yeah, you can set your tent there. You can sleep. You can lay down. You can go set up your computer or whatever and start doing some stuff.
You see, I'm getting a broad spectrum here. There's a broad spectrum. We're getting orgy and computer being set up.
I'd say that the partying part has been tuned down as we grew older, right? What was considered like standard behavior when I started going to demo parties would probably be a bit frowned upon if you would like do it at revision this year, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
But I find it as a sort of, I know you'll tell me off saying I'm an outsider, but I feel like an outsider everywhere, so let's lean into it. I just don't understand how that stuff emerged in that context, because it just, like, I get people going to a music festival and doing that stuff, like a big music festival, but I do not get that happening. Well, come on, I need some anthropology here.
All right, so when it started out, everybody was like teens, right?
Yeah.
And it's a demo scene, so everybody is a bit a high percentage of outcasts and like nerds and like people who doesn't really get to party a lot outside in their life, and all these young nerds suddenly find themselves with peers So I totally get that. Also, everybody's trying to be elite, you know? Everybody's trying really, really, really hard to be cool. And it's a bunch of insecure teenagers. So if you've ever been a teenager, it's cool to drink, it's cool to smoke, it's cool to do drugs.
You see, I was a straight edger. So I was into the straight edge hardcore punk scene. So there we go. But no, I understand that.
I don't remember any concerts and DJ sets early on at demo parties.
Well, to what extent is it like this nowadays then? You've just been to Revision, Dubs.
Oh, well,
what's this like now?
Revision was my first demo party in, 15 years. And I thought it was great. It was very little drink. I mean, it was a lot of drinking, but very controlled. Like in former parties, that would almost be like a compo in itself, people getting drunk.
Spot the most drunk.
Yeah. And I didn't see anything of that at this year's Revision. People had really grown old, you know, and trying to keep their health intact. And as I think that we're too old for that kind of partying that we did back in the days, I think that's like a natural turn for demo parties.
Yeah.
I think like if I would have told myself that 15 years from now, demo parties would like be inclusive, welcoming, people wouldn't be obnoxiously drunk, there wouldn't be any Nazis, there wouldn't be any bullying, I wouldn't really believe myself, because the demo scene has always been a kind of a semi-hostile environment for me. And I didn't get much of that hostility at this year's Revision. I mean, there were a couple of people who couldn't help themselves to try to get some cheap comeback poet style, but there was so little of that left. I really enjoyed it. I'm like kind of bummed that I didn't rediscover demo parties a couple of years ago. But then maybe this is, I don't know, maybe this is just Revision. I know they're working really hard to make it inclusive.
Yeah, also in general, compared to the older parties, the budgets are a bit better now, the equipment are a bit better. The old days, you just have a boombox, so what were you going to do? And I've been, to outline from 2006 to 2020. Each year they were genuinely trying to get a better PA, get better equipment, try to contain all the shit if it happened, etc. So, as Dawood said, we are getting a bit more wise as we get older. So, it's all natural.
Something I've struggled with, and it's on a lot more kind of nuanced level than like kind of just not wanting to be around people puking and fighting, is that like I got into this when I already had like a fuck ton of adult responsibility. So I already had like 3 kids, and it was at a point like, so it was 2016, 2017, and it was at a point where I was just starting to get a bit of time, just a bit of time, and I was like doing the demo thing in tiny little slithers of my life. So like it was like an hour here, half an hour there, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do an hour before the kids get up, and so it was always really fragmented. And what I've actually found really difficult is transitioning to a kind of event or space where that's all you do for 3 days. And I'm not talking about like the party bit, I'm talking about just the coding bit or the demo bit or whatever. And I mean, I kind of struggle with social interaction anyway, so I've always found that hard to break up around that, but that felt really difficult. And in fact, even when we did the Buxton Bites thing, which was 4 days, it like felt too long for me to be doing that as an activity. It kind of makes me feel a bit unwell. It's like if I spend too long, especially on coding, it becomes it's like too intense. It like flips, I don't know. And I found that really hard, and that actually puts me off. And I've always struggled with those bigger groups, and that is like I might not be too old for this or not, but actually just the thought of coming together with even like 20 people feels a large number for like what I prefer socially.
Yeah, but there's a difference between a 20 people party and a 700 people party. It's because
I can't even imagine.
If you prefer 5 people parties, then 20 people is a crowd, right?
Yeah.
If you go to Revision with your 5 mates.
Yeah, then it's you and them.
Yeah, you are at a 5 people party, and if you want to, when you want to, you can choose to interact with other people, but you have the anonymity in the mass, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think I'd like that. And actually, to use the analogy from before, that feels more like going to see like a show or, music concert type thing or festival, where you're right. It's an experience, a very different kind of collective experience.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people complaining that there's too much stuff going on at Revision, so they don't have time to do everything. Watch all the compos, watch all the seminars, watch all the DJ sets. And I don't agree with them. Well, I've been to a lot of music festivals, I played a lot of music festivals, and I think that a festival experience should be overwhelming. That feeling when you like look at the schedule and you like realize that you will never be able to see even half of the stuff that you want to see. So you have to like make priorities, and a festival should be overwhelming. And revision is moving towards that, and I like that.
Yeah.
You need to let go that you are in complete control of your surroundings. You're going to have to accept that things will happen, funny things or bad things, and you won't be around to experience all of that. I think that's a takeaway here, that it's fine.
Yeah, and there are so many places that's revision that you can like retreat to be alone or semi-alone, you know?
You can even drive away, worst case.
Yeah.
You could not go in the first place, in fact. Just kidding.
It was mostly what we saw from PHF hack and that hack back in 2021 and 2023, you know, just try to vet the people, have people that you know, and or someone can vouch for someone. It's what you described, though. It's pretty much a controlled environment. That's what we did with Paxton. We just expanded a bit the amount of people joining, but the core was there, and we didn't take it seriously at all. We just did it for fun. That's where the conscious decision of not voting came from anyway. If people want to take it seriously, fine. We are not. So yeah, after that, I don't know. Yeah, it's quite different from an organized demo party. But I think people were not feeling like Tom described, like overwhelming. And I think there's space for both activities, both a demo party and something like this. Which, of course, it's not like we reinvented the wheel there.
In the days before broadband internet, we would like do these kind of gatherings like almost every week.
There we go.
Like to get together with our interest, do whatever, play games or code demos or just copy wares. So yeah, it's a kind of return to that. Mates who like computers and want to spend the weekend together.
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting. I think actually like just kind of unpacking Buxton Bytes on that a bit more. Well, one of the anxieties I've had with it is so I mean this originally came up. I just suggested to like a group chat I was on that we booked a cottage somewhere in the UK, and I genuinely pitched this as a mental health retreat. That's what I called it. And I think people might have thought I was joking, but I actually wasn't. I was saying, I kind of need this for my well-being. And that's how it was pitched. And so the numbers were really small. And it was people who happened to be on that chat or engaged with that chat who were there. And if you look at that as a group of friends going away, that kind of makes sense and that works. And actually I wouldn't therefore have wanted my family there, because the whole point of that was in the same way that anyone in a kind of family setup might need time away or go for a break. That's how it was pitched. What then like happened with Buxton Bytes, and you know, I was involved in doing this, right? So this isn't a criticism. It began to be pitched as a party, and I think there was a level of irony to that at first. So like it got like Grazy put it on demoparty.net or something, like he did with Psychohack, and it was kind of not really serious, but it sort of was as well. It was, I don't know, it was in this weird space between are we doing a party or are we not? And it wasn't. I don't think it is a party because you couldn't choose to go. It was a group of friends. It doesn't look like other parties anyway. So we did this thing, and I was really worried. Became more and more worried about how people would feel who weren't invited actually. So I wouldn't have had my family there, but I was also really worried about how this would feel for people on the outside. And I think that's now a real challenge when we rerun it next year, because kind of you might get away with it for 1 year saying okay, yeah, this was just a thing, but now people know about it, and it's become kind of galvanized as being a party, and people talk about it as being a party, and there's been party reports, and there was the Cracktroy showcase, and so now what does this look like next year when only 15 people are allowed to go? It could look really cunty, actually, really cunty, because there's people who deserve to be there. Do we have then an obligation to the broader demo scene to open this up somehow, or is it fine to keep this small? On the family thing, I think a party like Revision, I would absolutely want to be able to take my family there. That is exactly the kind of environment I think should be family friendly from how you've described it, Dubs. Something like Buxton Bytes, it served a different function, and one of my anxieties is that we've kind of conflated by calling it all parties, and I know I've been accused of using semantics a lot, but we're calling it all parties, and I wonder what the optics are on that for the outside, because it isn't like Revision, you can't choose to go.
First of all, I've seen people bring their families at Outline. You could see from toddlers to even babies, you know, really nothing bad happened, or at least to my knowledge. What Damod thinks about this?
Yeah, I'm undecided. I grew up in a family that was going to demo parties in the way that I usually started going with my brother. And my brother started going to demo parties because, my father was kind of into demos and copying wares. So he was like, he already understood the concept and had no problems like taking my brother to a demo party to like check it out. And then like I could join in as an extremely young age. I was 11 years old the first time I brought a computer to a demo party, like my own computer. And at that time, demo parties was much more hostile than they are today. So I think I bring the family to demo parties. Totally doable if they're into it, as you said. Maybe not Buxton and Bites, because it's made to be a retreat. But
and do you think that's okay? Like, or should it be that like if they're Buxton Bites obviously ended up getting quite a lot of is publicity the right word? I mean, it made an impact because we had like so many people do these crack shows and so it became bigger. Is there then some community obligation at that point where we have to make sure more people can come, or is it okay when something seems to have an impact on the community to keep it just for a group of people rather than letting that belong to the community?
Yeah, I totally think it's okay. I mean, if you have a party, people normally ask if they get invited to a party. I'm not talking necessarily about a demo party. I'm talking about any party. I mean, maybe that's a cultural thing, but at least here it's common sense. If you get invited to a party, you ask if it's a party where you bring your kids or not. Like, you don't just show up with your kids taking it for granted that it was like, that's something you try to find out beforehand. And you also don't show up at a party at which you're invited with a bunch of friends who weren't, It's okay to have an invite-only party, and I think that reaches to the demo scene as well, and to a demo party as well. I mean, if you want it to be small, if you want it to invite only, and somebody gets upset or annoyed by that's not your problem, that's their problem. It's not a you problem, it's a them problem, They have to respect the format you want if you're the organizer. I see a lot of people treating parties like Revision as if it was like public domain in the way that, they give feedback as if it was a state organized stuff, and like, I'm paying my taxes, so the party should be like this. But that's also their problem, In the end, the demo scene is an anarchic place, and the only like rules that exist are the rules set by demo party organizers at demo parties.
And I think that makes this really interesting, and it makes it like what we're starting to get to, I think, is that these events occupy this really weird space actually, because like when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, me and my friends used to put on like shows for hardcore and punk bands. So like these would be DIY bands touring, and we were on this kind of net. So you'd know a band was touring and you'd put a show on in your town for them. And that would include like bands from the US and Europe. And we would put flyers up for the shows, and they were small, you get like a venue that could take 100 people, so we're talking about small events. And everything, we would just book a room out, and we would pay like the bare amount of money on the door to get in, just so we got enough to pay the bands, and that's how we do it. And I know that's how a lot of DIY music scenes look like. And the majority, so say 90% of people who come to those shows would be kids that we'd know, like us, who would look like us, and we'd know them. But then you'd always get like this small group of guys, typically by themselves, probably of our age now, who are obviously still into the music or whatever, and they'd seen the fly and they just come and they stand at the back and they watch and then they leave. And I think that's like really cool, and it kind of showed that this was more than just a group of friends doing something. Like with demo parties, would you ever get that? I mean, you might get it with Revision, so that doesn't count. But do you think you'd ever just get someone just showing up to Outline, who just found out about it on the internet, who has nothing to do with the demo scene, and just showing up and coming and joining in, or not joining in, just watching? Does that happen?
Actually, I remember a case where where a guy just showed up and he asked me, I heard that there's a demo party, that there's a party going. It wasn't demos either. I heard that there's a party going. What's happening? So I told him,
cannonballs into the pool. He'd been hoping for.
just go to the info desk. Go to the info desk, pay your entrance fee, grab a beer. That's it. If you like what's happening.
Happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, he had nobody to ask, and he asked me, and this happened. And Outland is not like in the middle of a town or something. It's usually in the outskirts of town. So probably the guy heard it from friends that this is happening, and they said, okay, just show up. So that was a case of outreach, I guess.
And obviously nowadays this stuff's online, so you could type, is there a party tonight, into a search engine of your choice, and this could come up with nothing about the demo scene. Sorry, W, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I was just thinking about all the demo parties I've been to in the 90s. They were usually in small towns, not in big, like I can't remember any demo parties in a big town. And in small towns, you will have this, band of teenagers roaming, roaming around on a Friday or Saturday night, not knowing what to do because they live in a shithole town. Yeah,
right.
And that would be a frequent thing as a demo party, where these kids would like come and either start trouble or not start trouble and just engaging and then leaving. Like standing in the back of the room, arms crossed. What the fuck is this? And having a few beers and then leaving after a few hours. That would be the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, there would be some clashes, but that was rare.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like it feels like kind of there probably are more similarities then to other forms of like niche event than perhaps I kind of thought in the past. It might have changed a bit more now. Maybe there's less of that now. I wonder if that would still happen, that kind of thing you just talked about, or whether we're in a different time to that, or maybe because the room would now be full of middle-aged people.
Yeah,
it might not be such an attractive space to go into.
Yeah.
Well, on the internet side, I this is a strong opinion, but I hate streams. And let's bear in mind, I came into this properly during COVID, so everything was streamed. So the first few big releases I did were all released on streamed online parties. And what a completely psychologically unsatisfying experience that was. And it continues to be. Like, so now I've been to a few places in person, I don't even want to watch streams anymore. I would rather we had no streams of demo parties and the stuff just appeared a few days later. Like, well, why does it have to be that there's this kind of beamed out individualized viewing experience? Because it like totally takes, if we want to think of something that makes people passive, it's being the recipient of a stream, right? I just think the difference between that and being in a room and actually experiencing a like collective emotional response to a bit of creativity, I don't know. I would never watch it. I will release at parties this year that I'm not at, and I'm not going to watch the stream.
Anyone who watches streams misses about 99% of the ambience, and that would can pointing at the screen.
Yeah, but I think the stream still has I think it has a purpose. I'm not as negative as Tom about the stream. I mean, I get it, I totally get it, but I also get all the people who would never dare or can't for various reasons, if it's economic or if it's handicap, or who can't go to a party, and the stream is the closest thing they are going to get. So I wouldn't deprive them of that.
That's interesting. That's a challenging view for me. But I suppose I still feel it's such a second best. It would be better not to have it at all. But maybe we need to hear from people who can't attend actually and who feel the streams help. It's easy for me to sit here as someone who can.
Well, again, most of the outline parties never even had internet. So people who weren't there would then start asking what happened. This can, even if you watch a stream for 10 minutes, this can give you a bit of...
And as you talk, I realise that I am in a really perverse, contrary state of mind with all of this. Because I would love the idea this stuff's hard to find. Not to exclude people, but that's the thrill for me. Look, the thought that, there's shit out there that I'd never...
Look,
when we've talked before about, why don't you just make a demo and show it at a party and then delete it and not release it?
No,
that kind of thing. I love that kind of thing.
We need to get to that. I think there's a lot of things to discuss there.
And I think for me, right, this is because when I fell in love with this stuff as a kid, it was through the cracking scene. I mean, obviously I was a kid, I wasn't doing cracking, but I loved the renegade, mysterious nature of it. It's like, you'd see a new crack trove for a crew you've not heard of. You'd be like, who the fuck are these? These guys must be so cool. Oh my God, just imagine they're outlaws, they're renegades, man. Yeah, living in a van. I just love that. And I feel this is why. Oh, so many people are going to hate me saying this. This is why I don't even really like the idea of archiving. I love the thought of this shit being marginal and outlaw and transitory and lost.
You like
and you
the
might
mystique.
find it, you might not. Yeah, I like the idea of just a floppy disk with no label and you don't know what the fuck's on it. That's for me what the demos, well, it isn't what the demo scene is. That's what this stuff should be, and that's my emotional connection to it. Obviously that excludes people, so I don't know. It's not I want to exclude people, I just love that mystery, man.
Well, you know, sometimes you make a joke and it's so private that nobody will get it anyway. So why should more people know about it? And you know, this can happen to demos. Maybe you want to make a performance in a party with using a demo, which will have no relevance to the outside world, because you're making it tailored for that party and that experience. So why archive? Like at some point that outline, someone brought an actual tabletop that he designed himself. We never saw it again. There's no download links. There's no, build one yourself. So it's gone. It's practically gone. We will never see it. And it's not inclusive because most people won't see it, but maybe that's fine. Why should everything be recorded? I also am not that into it, especially if the author doesn't want to, because there are certain reasons.
What do you think, Dubs? Do you need to feed your cat? Because I heard a little meow, meow.
Yeah, I'm about to feed one of my cats. She wouldn't leave me alone.
What? More food?
I like the cracking.
Yeah, that was also quite interesting, that you would go to some mysterious friends, they would start booting things that you didn't own, but there you would see new stuff like, he's doing rasters or moving the whole screen, what the hell. And it even comes with the game, nice. And in my youth, I liked the demo parts, the character parts where, the machine is underpowered, so these guys are trying their best to make it look not shit, and then you would put the game and it would be the exact opposite, because the people who did it did not have as much care as the people who did the characters. Yeah, it was an entrance to a world that you would have more software that you could buy, and then you would see that some people are really trying to make this machine look not shit, or exceed expectations. Ask people if they have more of these things.
But where did you get them from? Where did you get your cracks from? Who was your wares connection?
Look, I only had one connection. In the high school I was going, someone put a flyer and he says, I have Atari ST software, please call that. Completely out of the blue. So we're like, what the hell? Why is this happening? Like, did they target us? So we phoned the guy, and then we got in touch with him, and then he was basically selling pirate software, which is, of course, great, as everyone knows. It's not frowned upon at all. And, anyway, we got a lot of stuff there.
Where did he get them from?
I think he had some contacts, again in Greece, with some people who would get it from abroad, like via mail order.
All right, so they mail ordered wares. There was no BBS source going on.
No.
And I think this whole area is just so fascinating to think back to. I mean, at the time, I as a kid, I straight up love the illegality. I'm going to be honest. I still do. I love the idea. For me, because it wasn't just about piracy, it was actually fuck you. I'm gonna make your software free, and if you pay for this, you're a dickhead. I loved that. And we got my stuff, so I was 10 or 11 when I was really into that. 8, 9, 10, 11, I was really little. My dad taught electronics at a college, a technical college, and one of his students would give him stuff, and I don't know where that guy got it from. But we got very sporadic, weird stuff. So I had all the early LSD menus, and I had quite a lot of automation menus. Now in retrospect, actually, we only really had the early stuff. I don't think I ever got past about automation 100. So there was something weird there. And then we started getting loads of Pompey Pirate stuff. stuff. Now, I thought they were called the Pompeii Pirates. That's what me and my friend call them. Oh, the latest Pompeii Pirates menu. Now, we had this little narrative between us, me and my friend, who's the same age as me, which we just created through this availability, that the Pompeii Pirates were like, had beaten automation. This was our story, because that's all we got. We got all the automation stuff, and then that dried up, then we got the Pompeii Pirate stuff. And we were like, oh yeah, obviously they've just won. They're just far better. They're far better crackers. They're much better. And actually, now I'm back in the scene, I've realised that the Pompeii Pirate stuff wasn't actually well distributed. I don't know why we got it. Like, we lived in a place called Peterborough, which was about like 80 miles north of London, so kind of quite in the middle of of England. And the Pompeii Pirates were from a place called Portsmouth, where you'd be called Pompey if you were from. That's where it came from. And Portsmouth was like right down on the south coast. So this was probably about, let me think, about 200 miles, like 300 kilometers difference. And for some reason, we were getting it just in Peterborough. And I thought it replaced automation. And now I know it was really wrong. So I think there's this like fascinating social history of spreading. I wish we could go back and develop understand the networks through which this happened.
Worldview shattered.
Yeah, I really love to understand the networks, how wares got spread. I mean, I grew up in Sweden and I had a few automation menus, but I had mostly Equinox, Blade Runner, and replicants.
Be careful about the products.
Or not.
Yeah, so that's mostly French wares. How the hell did that end up in Sweden? And the only guy I could ask has sadly passed. I got most wares from my dad's colleagues at work, because they were trading wares at work. And the guy who was the source for most of the Atari stuff, he passed like 15 years ago. He was an interesting character.
I had a discussion last summer with a guy who was actually doing something like that. He was working on a shop back in the center of Athens in the early 90s, or maybe in mid-80s. And he was one of the first people who brought computers into shop in Greece.
But you started cracking, right, George?
Yep.
How did you get into cracking?
Confession is I'm pretty bad at it. Back in the day, I had a few originals. It's not like we also had a lot of money, so we went to the very few shops that carried this software. So we were very, very wary to buy something that was good. So we had Console magazine, etc. Anyway, we have a small collection of games. So back then, I didn't have any opportunity to crack anything because I got everything cracked. So at some point, when the whole archival push on PCs started happening, and we had the pasty format for HC, etc., I started, archiving all my disks, better fidelity, etc., with pasty that can also image protections, etc., etc. I had a game bought called of the Aztecs. So that thing, if you open the box inside there's not a lot, but it has this absolutely amazing code wheel that you can see. It's not easily photocopiable and stuff, and the protection was there. And when I started downloading disks, when finally we got internet here, nobody cracked it correctly, because they all had to make you memorize some of these codes, and then you had to enter them when the game asked you to. I said that was crap. I can probably do better than that. So yeah, Call of the Aztecs unfortunately has a very weird protection. I'm going to speed run through this because it's a long story. But first of all, the game has a custom format, so you cannot copy it via any copier. Once you do that, you can read on the manual that the game pretty much has its own language. It's not written in assembly. They developed their own language, so then they could port it to any other platform. So they wrote the code once, and then they made players for that hypothetical machine, or that compilers for that language, or interpreters. That, of course, the protection was embedded into that language. It was not an easy thing to do. So that, when I had some confidence about coding in assembly, I said, okay, let's try to make a proper crack of this game, because I don't want to enter any codes. So I started looking into that. It was horrible. I couldn't understand the thing. Finally, after a couple of weeks of trying a few things and getting the shit beaten out of me, I realized that I either had to learn the language, there was no documentation, or I could try to use different ways of attacking this. So when the protection asks for something, you have to press a key. So I said, okay, let's stop the program there. So that was pure assembly. It had to be because it interacted with the actual environment of the computer. So then I saw that it reads the value from the keyboard, it stores it somewhere, and then goes to cuckoo land and does some completely things nobody could understand if they didn't have the actual specs of the language. So then because I had at that point Steam Engine, which has an excellent debugger, I could put a breakpoint and see, okay, after writing, who reads that? So I saw the place in the code that reads this value, and where again it's read, because at some point it has to be compared with something inside the game. So then I did enough to figure out how the pseudo language works, and then when the comparison happens, I changed the pseudo language to bypass the step and think that the protection is passed. Of course, another bonus around here is that it was a quite clever protection, because if the protection failed, it didn't tell you immediately. You would start the game, and then after 2 or 3 minutes of playing, it would stop and give you that screen that it's piracy is illegal. So there was no actual way to find that you at that spot that you cracked the game properly. So there was a bit of experimentation. So that happened, and then I said, okay, if that's how all games are going to be, then I'm not going to do a lot of that. So that was my story, and that happened around 2000, early 2000s. Of course, cracking the protection, one quick story, and I'm done with that. Cracking the protection is fine, but then you have to make it available to someone who doesn't have a debugger. So you have to make the whole crack, like load the game, etc., and then change it at the right time, or bypass some code or some stuff like that. And that's of course quite fiddly, and this is probably even more difficult than cracking the protection. But while I was there, I thought, let's try to. The game was packed anyway, but I thought let's try to pack it with a more modern packer. Maybe we can get it down to less than 2 discs. That was the original game. So I tried that, and I asked around. I asked Waddy, and he told me, just use Super Packer 3. I tried that. It was quite decent. It's probably better than the contemporary packers of its area. So I said, fine, okay, let's do that. So I make a cracked cell that loaded the game, etc. And then when it requested to load the data, I fed it the data and then I packed it into RAM. All worked fine. Then I said, okay, let's try first level. First level works fine. Then, I lost, and I said, okay, let's get back to the menu. So the menu was loaded once, and then when I tried to get back to the menu, everything crashed. What is even happening? Why are you like that? I started doing a lot of experimentation, and in the end, I found that the packer had an interesting feature that it altered the source data. So if you try to unpack the same data twice, it was corrupted the second time. So it would unpack garbage and then it would dry. And that took me also a few days of being completely frustrated, not knowing what happened. So then I simply switched packers and everything worked, which was also quite interesting thing to test your tools before deploying them is the takeaway. So that's my sad story. About my. But
I love this stuff, and when I hear accounts of cracking like that, or a couple of my favourite things that I've read in recent times, like sort of scene or related stuff, is there's a huge interview with Zippy of the Medway Boys, somewhere on the internet. If you guys have seen it, it's so good. And also there's a write up by Orion. What's that game called? The one that had the funky ass protection.
Sorsui. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So he's got an account of the protection, with crazy protection, like 3-layer protection. And that's the stuff I love to read. And the reason I love to read it is because I do not understand it. I just don't. I do not. I mean, obviously I understand the words, but I have not got a fucking clue how you would do this. And part of me feels if I ever tried to learn it would spoil the magic. Because I'd be real, that's what's happened to me with demos. The bits of demos that super impress me are if we go back, think of the old stuff, the golden age demos. The stuff that still impresses me is the funky encryption protections, the disk loading, the actual screens. The stuff I used to think was amazing most of the stuff on that era is shit. I mean, like, I know that's a harsh thing to say, but most of it, I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it's obvious what they did. I didn't used to feel like that, and I know a lot of people will look at stuff and still be like, whoa. I just, like, a demo I used to love was the Mind Bomb demo by the Lost Boys. And there's a couple of parts of that still hold up, but most of it, I'm like, this is, like, kind of not impressive.
Contrived.
This is not what a demo should be. Whereas Cracking still gets me like that, and I still am so impressed. And when I read like Zippy's stuff about staying up all night trying stuff, and it's like, yeah, it's the magic. There's this magic to it that I kind of don't want to lose. And your story there, George, yeah, it's that still. I wouldn't have a fucking clue how to do that. I wouldn't know how to start, and I almost want to keep it like that. I guess it goes back to that renegade thing that I like. I don't want to know how this stuff works. It spoils it.
At some point, someone asked me, who was completely new at anything. How do you crack? And I told him, okay, sit down, read all the documentation, write lots of code, understand how the system working, and then cracking is trivial.
It's hard.
At some point, you become sentient.
And I know it would just be like another language. Yeah,
it simply clicks. It simply clicks.
Yeah, and it's the same with learning assembly language, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's that point where you go from, what the fuck is this? And then there's this weird middle stage where you get it, but you don't get it. So you get it and you can do stuff, but you don't really think with the machine. And like, I've got to the point of demo coding visual stuff now, where I can think with the machine. It's like I can be writing a bit of code and I can visualize where on the screen that is going to execute in a single frame. And like, I try and explain that to people who say, well, how'd you code demos? And obviously you can't explain that. It's like, I guess, I mean, I'm horribly monolingual because I'm British, but I think it's like learning another language as well, where there's suddenly a point, or learning to drive, right? Where you go from having to think about everything, like and shit, I'm at a roundabout and now the windscreen wipers are going off when I want to be signaling. There's all that, and then you go to the point where it's just you're one with the car. You're at one with the car, right? You've got to be at one with the machine. And I think for Cracking to work, you've got to be at one intimately with every single orifice on that machine. If you excuse the analogy.
Something like that. It's something like wake up and you say, okay, I can do this. It boils at the back of your mind. You keep processing it, and then you say, okay, it's that. So let's go do that. It's fine.
But there's a lot about protections.
No, protection is a huge matter, and it's usually off the shelf. For example, Call of the Aztecs didn't have an off-the-shelf protection. That's why it was good. It subverted you. It didn't crash the program immediately. It let you play a bit, and then it said, okay, haha, I got you, but I didn't tell you when I got you. So try again, idiot. Most of the protections were like, okay, we're going to check a protected sector, and if that fails, okay, I'm stopping. If they wanted a good protection, they would do a good protection. And the thing is with Cubase is it doesn't crash. It can mutilate your job, your work. You do some work with a crash software and then it stops loading, or
yeah, but that's a fine line to walk. I remember in the early days of Ableton Live, when Ableton Live was like coming onto the scene and taking over from stuff like Pro Tools and Cubase, especially for playing live, when like live PA performances were starting to become a thing. There was one version of Live which, a bit like Aztecs, it would let you play for a while, like sometimes for days or weeks, and then it would suddenly like, I got you.
Yeah.
And there was even, I don't know if this part is true, there were some rumors that it was especially checking for live conditions, like is this guy on a stage? I don't know, I don't think that could be true because that would be so advanced. But what's starting to happen was DJs and live performers, even quite famous ones who were using cracked versions of Live, would get that stuff on stage.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I've personally seen a concert with a famous French touch DJ, his like laptop freezing up because he used a cracked version of Live on stage. And then people stopped using Live for a while because, you know, that was kind of controversial. Yeah. So it's a thin line to walk, you know?
Don't do bad stuff, like some other PC protections that would do some extreme stuff, like reset your devices while they were working. So there were people who like fried their disks, their hard disks, because they resetted the IDE in their interface due to protection. And that protection got a really bad reputation, and I think they went out of the business in the end because of doing too extreme stuff.
Do you think cracking on the PC has changed a lot from the Atari days, or is the principle the same? It's just more to it.
Look, my brother has said a quite interesting saying once. If it runs RAM, you're fucked. It's going to get cracked anyway. Like it has to use the machine at some point, so you can do it. Now there were more extreme stuff that you could do with a fixed platform like on ST. Like back then we said, okay, we know how much each block of code takes to execute, so we can do timing stuff. On the PC, it's not that easy to pull off because you're multitasking and suddenly everyone is taking control of the CPU, etc. So you cannot do this fancy stuff, but you can make it more complicated. Like the game I described you. Imagine that you make 5 languages like that, one stacked on top of each other, and then everything runs in 5 different virtual machines. Good luck. Of course, your program is going to run much slower, but it will be virtually uncrackable. And they can do that now, and they have the tools. I know some people, I don't want to mention them, who work professional companies making protections. That guy was responsible for protecting Skype, and that took ages for people to crack because it was vital that nobody could crack it, because then they would have access to the protocol. Here I've heard of things that really make me quite uncomfortable because we have more complicated, more complex and more elaborate tools to do these things.
Yeah, so you're saying that cracking on PC is almost like wandering into 0-day territory, like exploit. The kind of people who are selling 0-day exploits and crackers are starting to overlap.
Yeah, if you listen, if you read the interviews, etc., people always wanted to protect the software for the first couple of weeks of release because that's where the real money was getting from. So it's enough for them. And you can see now that we hear stories like people are leaking games, etc., before they even add the protection. So. Yeah.
That's how they get them.
So that's you pretty much are mostly social at this point, not doing actual work.
I think one of the really sad things that's been lost in Atari demos is protection. I just think it's so cool, the idea of protecting a demo. And of course people broke it, but some of those protections were funky as hell. Obviously people could still put protections on things. We've kind of moved to this point in Atari demos where, I'm not saying it's open source, but it's kind of getting there. But then even if someone did protect it, emulators have got debuggers in, so it's like there's really no point. And I just find that I think that's such a loss. It's such a technical loss.
You will be very happy to know that we protected our revision demo.
Good.
Like we have a guy in the group who likes to do protection for fun, like purely for fun. So he puts these protections into menus that we release that are kind of breadcrumb cracks. No, like they're meant to be cracked, like more like a quiz or a...
Yeah, right. It's a quest. Also, the music disc that Live made with the late Ultraseed Music, I was actually partially involved in the protection of that because it has protection, but not in the sense you would think. It had protection in which you cannot load the tunes again in Maximizer, probably ever, unless you do a lot of work. And there is actual protection, like anti-hack protection in there.
Was that to protect the instrument?
Yeah. Ultraseed didn't want people to open his tunes and see what he did. So they created the custom format and then they added some software protection on top.
Yeah, I definitely think we should need much more of this in demos and releases in general, because I think it's such an important part of the demo scene culture.
Yeah, I agree.
And it
would
be more fun if people, instead of doing write-ups of how they release something technically impressive and then they do a mini web page and write how they did it. I think it's a bit of a bummer. I think they should do the write-up, but they should hide it behind the protection.
Or crack the protection and then we do the write-up or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. And And like one of my favourite things from back in the day was when in the original Flexi Scroll demo they wrote a incorrect write-up of how to do sync scrolling on the SD, which is still persisted. You still hear people say they said you use the keyboard buffer. I mean, it's actually or keyboard processor, and they were like, and it was bullshit. But you still hear people saying, "Oh yeah, I think sync scrolling seems to involve the keyboard processor." It's like still stayed. It's so cool because it was such a guarded secret. It was a guarded secret at the time. People did not explain what it was unless you were in there. And I love that this myth has persisted 30 years.
Well, step one, you create something quite original. Step two, we protect the shit out of it.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
I've never explained any of my stuff, and actually none of my stuff. But well, I would say this is kind of worth explaining, really. But like the 0-bit plane demo we did last year with SMFX raised some eyebrows, which always surprised me. And seeing some of the questions people asking, it really fooled people. A lot of this demo, which didn't do some of the things people thought it was doing, really fooled people. And I've loved never explaining it and just allowing people to think we were doing all this stuff we really weren't. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for people listening, but there's nothing in there that's not very well documented from many, many years.
Also, there's the opposite thing I'm doing a lot of times. I do technical stuff and nobody gets it.
Yeah. There's that too. Exactly.
Which is even more ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Tom, you have touched on this before. When you go to extreme length in terms of time you put on making a demo to make stuff technically impressive and technically perfect, and then you ask yourself how many people actually notice.
Yeah, absolutely. And the answer's none. For me, it's some of this has been naivety of thinking that everyone will appreciate it, and having this sense that there's this audience, this incredibly intellectually and artistically engaged audience out there who notice everything. And of course there isn't, because people are people. And like the technically best effects I've ever written have gone completely unnoticed. And it actually tends to be the stuff that's either a magic trick, like I said, or actually stuff that isn't really anything other than what it looks like, but it's just exploring a concept that people think would be difficult. So an example would be in the SMFX demo replay, I did a rotating twister. So there's a twister that spins. And there's no hardware tricks. It's just optimized code. It does exactly what you think. It draws a twister onto a canvas, and then it transforms the canvas onto the screen with a rotation. There's like no trick. And yet people were like, whoa, amazing code. It's like, it's not amazing. It really isn't. If you looked at the code, it does exactly logically. If you said to any SD coder who's done a bit of stuff, how would you do this? They'd say you do it this way. Whereas there's other bits of that demo, which I was like, this is fucking, this is amazing. People are going to love it. And people say, yeah, well, fine. Like, you cunts. I spent months on that, and you give a shit.
You can't please anyone.
No, but I should, yeah.
Yeah, when you get called out for some technical detail that you missed, or like something is a bit buggy, and like maybe you didn't even notice it, but somebody noticed it. You feel like shit. So I mean, sometimes
you
it
do.
happens.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
and that's happened to me, and I with like some seriously pathological motivation, have basically rewatched all my demos until I've noticed those bits in all of them, and now I hate all of them because of those bits. Because every demo has something you miss. You just perceptually you will always miss stuff.
Probably, or you can just appreciate that you are feeling euphoric while making it and move on. That's what I do at least.
If only I was. I feel shit when I'm making it.
Do you feel like shit while making demos, Tom?
Yeah, I can do. So the bit that's fun is when you come up with an idea and you get it running as a prototype. So that might be a relatively short piece of time that takes. So when you're getting that prototype, you're like, I've had an idea. Oh my God, it works. Then there's the bit of getting that into something releasable, which just sucks. And it sucks more and more the deeper you go into it, because first, obviously, you've got to get it doing some variations, doing some interesting things. You've probably made a bunch of stupid decisions getting it up to a prototype point that you then either have to roll with or unpick, so that sucks. And then you've got to get it working with other bits, and that's horrible. So the number of times I've had a bit in isolation, it's perfect. Then you put it after another bit or before another bit, and you realize there's a bug, and you're spraying stuff into an area of memory you just didn't realize. this, because when it was running by itself, and then things are fucking up, and like a protection, it doesn't necessarily fuck up in the way you'd expect. So I've had demos before where a bug has been really early in the demo and has only manifested at the end. And that, luckily, with modern tools, it gets easier to sort that out. But you can still have those moments of, and it tends to be right at the end, where you're sweating, thinking, yeah, this isn't going to be finished. I've just spent a year writing this, and it was every minute was wasted time. Especially when I feel that if there's other people who have a stake in it, or they've given me assets, you have that weight of, I'm about to waste all these people's time. And I have always found that very difficult. I've seen other people thrive on that chaos. They seem to love the it's all fucked. It brings them alive. It doesn't mean it sends me the other way. It's why I do a lot of stuff by myself.
What do you think, George? What do you think is fun about demo making?
The fun part is when I'm designing. Absolutely, hands down. Like once I've done with all the shit and all the code and all the parts are there, then I sit down and say, okay, let's sequence that and let's tweak that and let's do that, and that's absolutely amazing experience for me every time.
So we like literally polar opposite bits of this process, and by the sound of it, by the language we're both using, quite dislike the other bits. I want to be more design and artistically focused in my stuff, and so I've probably started making more sacrifices on the technicality. Like the demo we did with 505 and ModMate last year, Forever, is very simple, really. The effects are all simple. I said to 505, just do anything with the music, and he was using ModMate's instrument set, which is crazy, and uses like every single timer. So like there's a lot of that takes up so much technically of what the SC is doing. So the effects are really simple, and it did let me think more about design. I think in the past I've written hyper technical effects quite badly and then had to make something design out of them, and that broke me.
This is usually what I say, like don't top up the CPU. Just leave a 10 or 20% free.
It's kind of interesting for us on the Atari, because the history of the SD demo scene has been you use 99% CPU for everything, and if you don't, you suck. That's kind of what it was like.
This is a bit of the demo screen format. Like, we're going to show you something, and that's it. Searching for space is luxury, but we're doing it anyway. The rest, we're taking over the machine, pretty much. I'm not convinced you can do that and have a coherent demo.
Yeah, and I think that's what was really refreshing about Tin's demo last year that was nominated for a Meteoric, in that it was unashamedly a single screen.
Yeah.
And obviously it was more than proof of concept, but it was kind of, here is a technical thing, and it allowed total focus on that.
I've actually seen previews of that years ago before he released it, and when I did, I told him, dude, you really have to release this now, like yesterday. And he was like, no, because I don't like the effect, and I want to do something spectacular, and I want to build a whole demo, etc., etc. We were very lucky that Dubmood came up with the Ika tunes that we used.
But those tunes are like almost 20 years old as well.
yeah, that were actually the design, And I used one of the tunes for the character we did for toys for the game, and then when Tin was trying to find anything that would be close to assets, I told him, I still have a Nika tune, and I said, gimme. so then he grabbed some stills from the show, and that was his design. But it was desperate, and it worked brilliantly, I think.
No, it did. And it was acknowledged too, because it got nominated for a Meteoric. And
do you think it should have won?
Well, it depends, doesn't it? Because I don't know what criteria they were using. I heard there's this criteria that it has to not only be technical, but be technical in a way that makes sense to the public or something. Someone told me that. It might be one of you guys. In which case, if that's the criteria, then no, it shouldn't have won. But if it was genuinely, this is about an innovative misuse of hardware, then it should have won. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Any way you put it, it shouldn't. This thing is impossible. It's considered possible to happen. What he did, and then I said, after I saw that the demo with the SIM card won, I actually sat down and gave it a fair review in my mind, and in my opinion, it's nothing close to what Tin does. There's too many concepts that are happening for that demo screen to work, and so many leaps that he made to exploit this that we were all. Most of the people were known since the 90s and 80s, and nobody sat down to even think about this. So there were so many mental leaps that happened in order to create this demo that I don't think the SIM demo is even close. I mean, yes, it's a SIM card. You don't expect a SIM card to do this, fine. But they also say that it just plays animations and quite slowly, and they need 4 SIM cards to do it. So it's not a single SIM card.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So
but it's back to that point,
it's getting a bit less impressive.
Yeah, so it's kind of a battle between the SIM card demo, which could possibly interest people from outside the scene to get into demos, and then it's Tin's demo, which is practically blowing the minds of people who have been in the scene for 40 years, who never figured out these tricks. And then suddenly another discussion, like, are we doing demos for ourselves, as in the scene, or for the community, or are we doing demos as some sort of outreach because we are vampires who don't want to die? In a scene type of way.
And I think that second point is a fantasy. I don't think. I mean, who are we trying to outreach, and why? It makes no sense. I'm not saying there might not always be people who are interested in this. Just in the same way there'd be people who are interested in like learning blacksmithing or something like that. But I've never understood this idea that we need to be doing this outreach thing.
As long as there are demo parties, etc., it's going to attract people who have that mindset. But what is the actual income of new people or old people to do this thing that we're doing?
Especially like if we're talking about a specific platform like the Atari, I think.
I think Tom, you're the latest addition to the Atari scene.
Yeah, bro, he's the junior.
Yeah, I probably am. I think as well, like if we're talking about like the hyper technical stuff, which obviously Tin's demo did. I think as well that there's sort of levels of sophistication in how you would even understand these sort of tricks. So like there was that C64 demo. That's so easy to explain to someone who doesn't know what a C64 is. You can only have 8 of these things moving on the screen. This has got 9. But how do you explain overscan? Removing borders, because that only makes sense with a CRT monitor. That being a set of boundaries to break is so stuck to a particular set of technologies and point in history that it almost becomes so hard to explain that why would anyone care? Yeah. The only reason I care is because I grew up and just the idea of storage limitations again means nothing.
Yeah, size coding used to be one of these outreach stuff for the demo scene. Like in our time, it was the demos themselves and crack intros that got us into the scene, right? Mm-hmm. And then later generations, it was size coding. That doesn't work anymore because kids today don't even have a notion of file size. Like I had to explain to somebody who was doing their second year of master in digital design, the concept of file size. Yep. I was telling this person that this file is too big for web. And they, what do you mean too big? The resolution? No, it literally you need to compress it. You can't have lossless data that's this big. The site is going to load so slowly. Like, what are you talking about? And I realized the person in front of me, who is like 21, doesn't understand file size, and hence wouldn't be impressed by a 4K intro because it doesn't mean anything.
This is the guy who is going to design the pacemaker, the hardware for your pacemaker in the future.
But again, I don't know who's appreciating this stuff beyond a very small group of people.
Well, that's the scene to you.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
But I'm thinking 10 people.
Yeah.
Right, actually, up to where we started.